Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have my May wrap up. Now, before I get started, I just wanted to talk about some stuff, and if you are following me on Twitter, you will know that some pretty horrific stuff has been happening in my life recently. I am still going to be making content because there is a lot of time at the minute where there's not a lot that anyone can do, and I'm probably not going to be going to work for a while. Reading is difficult because my mind keeps wandering, and pretty much creating content is all that I have to do right now. And with me being a creative person, creating content, filming videos, editing them is a great way to get my mind off things and also a good outlet for my stress. If you do not know what I'm talking about, there is a link to my Twitter in the description box. As always, you can go over there and check it out. I have been tweeting about it. I can't really discuss it yet because I'm not really in a place where I can vocalize it without falling apart. So essentially what is going to happen is I'm just going to try and keep my shit together for long enough to film a video. So as you all know now, this is my May wrap up, and this has been the best reading month so far, quantity wise, as in quantity of books. However, it isn't quite the best month page count wise, and it has also been the best month quality wise. In May, I did read a total of 10 books. I took part in Sobathon and I completed 4 books for that alone. And I read a total of 2,744 pages, which breaks down roughly to 88 pages per day. Like I said, it was a really good month quality wise, and I read 4 4-star books and 6 5-star books. Those are the only ratings for this month. I had a good balance of young adult and adult. I read 5 of each. For the formats, I read 6 standard books, 3 graphic novels and 1 novella. And genre-wise, I read 3 fantasy, 3 sci-fi, 1 non-fiction, 1 classic, which I know isn't really a genre, but that's how I prefer to track them, 1 magical realism and 1 contemporary. So overall, I think the stats are pretty good for this month. I will be doing a bullet journal setup flip through soon, and you'll be able to see a little bit more of how I do track my stats, because I am a statistically oriented person and I really enjoy looking at statistics and growth and things like that. So you will see a little bit there of how I do track my statistics. So let's just get into the books I read. The first one was a adult non-fiction, and it was From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty. This was a book about different death practices across the world. So it explains how people in, for example, Indonesia and Mexico conduct the celebrations of death, anything that's sort of very different from how we do it with a standard funeral. I did find this to be very informative. Hi, Grace. And if you are morbidly curious like me, then I think you would really enjoy this. I did find it very informative, like I said, and it's also interesting to see how different other cultures are from us. What I will say though is that I know that Natasha from My Reading Is Odd has also read this recently, and she did say that a lot of the stuff in it she already knew, so if this is a subject that you already know quite a bit about, you may not gain much from this book. Then I read Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. This was for the Throne of Glass read along that I'm hosting. I do have a book diary for this, and this wasn't the book I expected it was. For some reason I confused Crown of Midnight and Heir of Fire, so I thought the things that happened in this book only happened in Heir of Fire. So it got me in the feels a bit. It was like I was reading it for the first time a lot of the time because I didn't really know what was going on. The writing in this has massively improved from Throne of Glass. Now that I know a lot more about Sarah J Maas's books, I can sort of like track her progress. I sound like a teacher, but sort of see her improvements, and I really enjoyed reading this. I will link the book diary above if you want to check that out. However, it does contain spoilers, but I did give this one 5 stars. I really liked it, and as you know, I'm trash for Sarah J Maas, so it's not really any surprise. Oh god, there's too many animals here. This month I also read Saga Volume 5, 6 and 7. I gave them all 5 stars. I will say that Volume 5 is probably the weakest one that I've read so far. It was still really good, but I didn't feel like it lived up to the same sort of level as the other books in the series did. Volume 6 made me cry like a baby at the end out of happiness. Like, I was so emotional. It was crazy. And Volume 7's pretty traumatic, and I need to read Volume 8 and find out what happens next. For those of you that don't know, this is an adult sci-fi graphic novel that's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet in space, where you follow these 2 people who are from different planets and have fallen in love and made a baby together, and the governments from their planets don't like that because they're supposed to be at war, and so they send mercenaries after them. Throughout the course of this series, you do follow multiple perspectives. You follow the parents of the child, you follow other family members of them, you follow the mercenaries, so it can be very morally grey and you're sort of rooting for them all at once as they're all like coming together and clashing. I absolutely love this series and would definitely recommend you check it out if you haven't already, even if you don't like graphic novels, because I was really not a graphic novel person, but I absolutely adore these. Then I read A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas. This is a young adult fantasy and it is the novella companion to the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I did do a book diary for this as well, so if you want in-depth thoughts and you've already read it, then please check that out. Oh my god, Rosie, stop knocking my tripod. Rosie. This sort of follows the Night Court as they prepare for winter solstice, which I guess is sort of like Christmas. Can't deal with you, get on my knee. There you go. It has little to no plot and it's sort of just following them in their lives as they do day-to-day things like shop for each other. I did kind of expect more from this because although it's very short, it is supposed to bridge the gap between the trilogy that has been completed and a new trilogy to come involving new main characters. I don't really want to spoil who the new main characters are for you in case you want to read it and find out, but I didn't feel like the main character of the new series was really in this. It was sort of mentioned about her, but everyone was so preoccupied with shopping and rebuilding that they didn't really like dwell on it. So I did give this a 4 stars. It's the lowest rated Sarah J Maas book that I have. I probably enjoyed it about 4 or 5 stars worth. However, I'm disappointed by the marketing of this book, and if I was to rate it critically, it would be a 2 stars. But like I said in my previous video how I rate books, I do rate on enjoyment. But this was very disappointing. I expected a little bit more from it. I don't really think it should have been published. I think maybe she should have published 2 or 3 of these and then bound them up into a hardback. But I did enjoy it for the sake of seeing the characters enjoy themselves and have fun and just sort of like live a few days in their life. But definitely not worth a full cover like hardback release, and I'm kind of salty about that. Then after lots of badgering from Najwa, I picked up her favourite book, The Great Gatsby by S. Scott Fitzgerald. This is the classic that I read, although I'm not sure if it is technically classed as a classic because I don't know if it's quite old enough. But this follows a guy who lives next door to this notorious sort of millionaire called Jay Gatsby, who lives in this opulent mansion next door and throws these wild sort of infamous parties. And I did read half of this when I was in college for English literature, but then I did change my course to English language, so I didn't really remember much of what was going on. I've also seen the film, yet I managed to forget the ending of this. I did enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it because it is very short. But I enjoyed like the 20s glamour sort of aspects to it and the sort of turns of phrases. It was also set in New York, which I did appreciate. So yeah, I did really enjoy this one. Then we have my Sobathon book, so I will link my Sobathon vlog up above. However, I understand that a lot of you will want to watch a 20-something minute vlog just to find out my thoughts on a few books, so I will also go over them here. The first book that I read was The Astonishing Colour of After by Emily X.R. Pan. I gave this one 4 stars. This is about a girl whose mother commits suicide. The girl herself is half Taiwanese, but she's never met her maternal grandparents, and her mother does appear to her in the form of a bird and sends her a sign to meet her grandparents, so she sort of goes over there to try and learn more about her mother, her culture, try and find out what the bird wants her to do. I would describe this book as an exploration of grief because the overall theme of it is how to move on after you've lost somebody very close to you. It does have 3 timelines. One is the present day as the main character Lee is in Taiwan with her grandparents and what's going on. The second timeline is the events that lead up to her mother committing suicide. And then the third one is a non-linear timeline that sort of jumps around all over decades from different people's perspectives. And that was the timeline that I enjoyed the most. However, I did think that all of the conflicting timelines impaired my enjoyment a little bit of this book. And I also didn't feel like the inclusion of a love interest was necessary, aside from to sort of show that the main character had a life to go back to and she had reasons to get better mentally and move on with her life. This is obviously a magical realism because of the aspects of the bird, and there are a lot of like sort of strange things. in this. However, I did feel like it wrapped it up very nicely at the end and wasn't like most magical realisms I've read where it leaves me thinking, what actually just happened? Then I finished King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard, which was another reread for me. I am currently halfway through Warstorm and I'm loving it. This is the third book in the Red Queen series, and I'm not going to tell you what it's about because I go into it quite a lot in my channel in previous videos. But this is the third book. It is my favourite installment of the series so far, except that I think Warstorm may top it because Warstorm is so good so far. And this one is kind of a mix of the political and intrigue. This one is sort of a mix of the political intrigue and court politics of the first book and the military aspects of the second book, which I think was a really good balance. Also, the stakes are much higher in this book. Gave this one 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. And then the last book that I read was also a reread, and that was Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging by Louise Renison. This is a young adult contemporary about a 14-year-old girl called Georgie Nicholson, and it is her diary of just the random hilarious things she gets up to. I gave this one 4 stars. This is my favourite series from my childhood, and it probably played more of a part in my childhood than Harry Potter did. I was literally obsessed. However, you may have heard me say before that I didn't finish the series. I haven't read the last book because I was kind of a little bit too old at that point. I think I was 17 or 18 when it was released. But I do want to go back now and reread it. I wouldn't recommend this to people who haven't read it before because it does contain a lot of problematic language. However, it was published in 1999, so that's kind of the reason for it. It's nothing too extreme, but it does make jokes about lesbians and very slight racial slurs in an offhand, like, joking way. So it isn't anything like extremely severe, but it is like insensitivity towards diversity and things like that. So if that will offend you, then I would steer clear. However, if you have read this before and were thinking of rereading it, I would say that it's still pretty good, even though I'm now 25. So that's everything for my May wrap up. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments below what books you read in May, or if you've read any of the books that I have. Please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to. If you head into the description box below, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and also a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today. Bye!